morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining us in this episode of uh, uh, Q&A series and BRM Roundback series. We are having a great conversation today. Today is our episode number 30 of the BRM Brownback series. And we are looking at, as part of the BRM week, we completed the BRM week a few weeks before, and we wanted to have a guest who was supposed to be speaking. And now is the right opportunity because we're going to introduce our speaker today, Tina Pomeroy, who is one of the top 2024 BRMs and has been a business and technology leader joining us today. And I'm so glad and excited to have a great conversation on the topic of BRM Value Proposition. Thank you so much, Tina, for being here, and I hope you're doing well.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Tina, for our viewers who are BRMs, practicing BRMs, or aspiring BRMs, give us a rundown of your journey and what is that you are very passionate about BRM.
Well, thank you for asking. So it's a very long journey. I've been a BRM for a little over 15 years,
Right.
and I had the unique opportunity of standing up my former organization's first BRM capability. And I will tell you, just like I tell everyone else, my leader even told me, Tina, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what it should look like, but we know we need someone like you to figure out what our business leaders, what their pain points are, what their customers are looking for. So go build it. So I build it and they came, right? So ended up being the sole BRM for about 2 or 3 years, brought on another BRM, quickly saw, or our business leaders in IT quickly saw the value that the BRM brought. So we built a team of 3 to 5 BRMs, and it slowly grew from more tactical work into more strategic work. And when I left my organization at that time, it had finally grown to a more strategic tip of the spear type of role that were really targeting transformational efforts and great business value for our business leaders.
Awesome. And I think it's a Herculean task. And I mean, you said that you're trying to do it from a scratch to get this over. Isn't that a kind of a fulfillment that you get at the end of the day that you made an impact, you made a difference, and that's you kind of created a legacy for the rest of the people to kind of follow up in your shoes?
Absolutely. And I think it was Aaron Barnes that coined the phrase BRM is going to be the most challenging yet most rewarding career you'll ever have. And he is totally correct. You know, some days are tough being a BRM because you have a lot of challenges, a lot of discussions, a lot of things that our business leaders want for themselves and their customers
Right.
that sometimes or the IT capability isn't there, or it's just not the right time to
Right.
do what they're needing to do. But man, overall, it is just so rewarding to bring value to an organization in this role.
Well, just on the note that sometimes I feel, Tina, sometimes you need to be resilient because you don't, it's kind of sometimes a thankless job.
Yeah.
People don't realize. So how do you handle that? I mean, this is something I talk about it for a lot of aspiring people. They get dejected because nobody observes the work that they do. And it's just obvious, right? But you have done this, you have seen through this grind for a lot of time. So what would be your advice for people to be that mentally resilient and say that you're on the right job, you're doing the right thing, and get the confidence and assurance that your work matters? What do you say about that?
My biggest piece of advice is you're not alone. We have a global community of BRMs with the BRM Institute. And if you have a BRM team within your organization, or you know people within an organization that have a BRM team, talk to them. They have the same struggles you do. And my BRM team, we always had Friday, what we call therapy sessions, where
Wow.
we would talk through our challenges through the week and even our wins. You have to talk about your wins, right?
Right.
And it could be, we had a lot of cross collaboration too, right?
Right.
Some business partners may need this type of business outcome or this type of process change. Well, the same business partner over here that maybe another BRM is partnered with, maybe they need the same thing. And we can work together to create those economies of scale. But again, have these therapy sessions with your peer BRMs and you'll go far.
Well, I love this part of it. I'm going to start implementing these therapy sessions and telling my clients
Yeah.
and business partners it's true, right? I mean, people think that we all need help, but sometimes it's also that we don't want to open up, right? We just get in our own space to hold on our thoughts and emotions, and sometimes it could be frustrating. But I love the part that we need to open up, and when
Mhm.
you know that there's someone else beyond you who also face the same kind of things, it's probably a good experience. I love that we can
Yes.
kind of bring into that. So our first question is. Do you think that BRMs are valuable to an organization? And I want you to put the hat of a business leader because I want you to play the business leader and say, do you really see the value of BRM in an organization? Because for BRMs, we are all passionate to do what we want to do it. But is it the same pair of lens that a business leader sees through it? I want to see with that pair of lens, Tina, and say, what is your perception of a BRM into an organization? I want to have a candid conversation on that.
Right. So I'm going to answer two ways.
Right.
So if you're a business leader that has never partnered with the BRM, you're not going to immediately see that value. So it's on the BRM and they're accountable for creating that value proposition and of utmost importance, creating that trust.
Right.
So trust, it takes a long time to build trust, especially with a new partnership. So the business leader may not immediately see value. And if you have a new partnership with the new business leader and or your new BRM, it could be that you can get small wins with that business leader. It could be something as in IT world, something as small as they need 20 laptops, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's easy if we have the stock, right?
Sure.
That is easy to procure 20 laptops. And if that's what that business needs right now, that's their number one thing. Get it done. It's those small wins that build trust. They see that from their BRM, and then they will start beginning to trust you with, I'm doing these bigger things. Here's my roadmap. In 5 years, I want our business to grow from, 1.5 billion in revenue to 5 billion in revenue. And here's how we want to do it, or help us figure out how to do it.
Right.
Now, if you're a business leader that has been working with the BRM for a very long time, those are your trusted strategic partnerships, and you have the type of transparent conversations that are priceless. They talk to you as a BRM about their struggles, the things they don't like about their provider organization. And that could be IT, which I'm an IT BRM. It
Right.
could be HR, finance, legal. BRMs are so much more than working in the IT domain.
Right.
So you start building up that trust, and they start bringing you into their strategy conversations. They
Right.
start bringing you in when they have vendors come in. You sit on steering committees of a high profile CapEx projects. So two answers to your question, but
Sure.
it needed to be said for
Yes.
new
Absolutely.
partnerships and established partnerships.
Absolutely. And I think that you made a very important point and distinction around start small. If they need laptops, get that done. Because
Yeah.
I see a lot of BRMs aspiring to be more strategic, but I tell a lot of times in my podcast that it's very difficult to think strategic when your pants are on fire.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
better fix the ones that are on the ground, then you start looking it up. Because frankly speaking, the business partners are also struggling on a lot of things and juggling around that. So if we can make their life a lot more easier and get these things in place, including process efficiency, streamlining things with tickets and stuff, even at the service desk and IT operations, you're going to free up their time in terms of escalation management and stuff. That itself will be a very important factor. So do not underestimate that small tactical work that you need to do, because we need to serve the business partner and you need to pick them at the journey where they are in, right? Rather than just looking at building castles to do that. That absolutely resonates with me a lot. So some of the things, the second one would be on challenges. As we start to pursue this BRMs, um, what are some of the common challenges BRMs face when communicating their value proposition for enabling capabilities? Because, as you rightly said, if IT is not stepping up the game, how are you going to even serve the business partner? Because we need to have, I call this partner in crime, we need to have these people two in a box to go there to do it. But how do you, and this is a very, very intense conversation between IT and the BRMs itself. Are we all aligned as a one cohesive unit, or we are trying to fight each other for the pie? So how do you kind of look at positioning the value proposition and some of the challenges that you see that we need to be taking into consideration?
So two things. I would say the number one thing when communicating value is role clarity.
Right.
So between project managers, business analysts, even service desk technicians on the IT service management side of things, there has to be a really clear definition of what your organization wants the BRM to do and what a BRM does. A BRM is the strategic interface between your business leaders and the enabling organization. And again, that may not be IT, it could be HR, finance,
Right.
legal, and the like.
Right.
But project management, they execute.
Right.
Service managers, service desks, they fix problems, they identify problems, they fix things.
Right.
Business analysts, they do deep dive analysis on problems and planning. And while a BRM can wear all of those hats, they are accountable for the relationship,
Right.
either building or maintaining, nurturing the relationship between the enabling capability organization and the business partner. So role clarity is so important, especially when you're setting up a brand new business capability. Because if you don't do it from the start, you will be seen as, oh, well, I'm going to call Tina for everything. I'm going to be the single point of contact.
Right.
It's not sustainable. That's not the BRM role. The BRM role is the single point of focus between the BRM and that business partner.
Right, absolutely right. And from an enabling functions like example, HR, finance, marketing, sales, are BRMs still accountable or responsible for the outcomes finally? I know that you did talk about the relationship part, we do that, but invariably, if the team doesn't succeed, even in spite of a relationship, we feel that we have let the team down. So do you still think that we have a part accountability or part responsibility for the outcomes for that particular enabling capabilities?
Absolutely. Another item that the BRM is responsible for is value management.
Right.
So when you talk with your business leaders, they have or they should have a set of business outcomes that they want to achieve.
Right.
So we do that. We document those with a value plan. And the value plan is, okay, here are the business outcomes I wish to achieve by this process change, initiative, project, whatever. And then we have to identify, okay, great, these are your business outcomes. How do we know we made it?
Right.
And it's same concept as in project management, which is benefits realization, right?
Correct.
But
Correct.
with value management, you do that through the length of here's the piece of demand, right? Here's the
Right.
demand piece where the business needs something to achieve something.
Right.
And then you identify that value.
Correct.
You do that through the course of the project. Are
Right.
we achieving that value? Do we have value leakage? If we do, where is it? How can we fix it?
Right.
At the end of the project, did we finally achieve what we meant to? And again, if we didn't, why?
Right.
And it doesn't even stop at the end of the project. So 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, are we still getting the value that we intended? And by we, I mean IT, BRM, the business leader, execution, right?
Right.
The
Right.
software engineers, did we get that value? And again, if we didn't, why?
Correct.
So yes, the BRM is totally responsible and accountable to making sure that those business outcomes are met, even though there may be some, hiccups along the way with execution.
No, absolutely right. And this resonates for me that relationship is not the goal. Outcome is the goal. Relationship is a
Right.
tool to make that happen. So let's not lose sight of that goals and outcomes. That's why we become valuable. So that's a really important point to drive through it. Now, as BRMs, you have a BRM who's like an amateur BRM starting off their journey, getting into that part. And then after a particular part, they become really proficient on that. How much of the time that you see that the BRMs are having the necessary skills and competencies to overcome these challenges? Is it something that they gain by going a training course, or is there any other skills and attributes that you would expect the BRMs to hone in order to become resilient to address some of the challenges that come every day? There's a surprise, there's something that's happening which we never anticipate. So what do you think are some of the key skills and attributes to overcome some of these challenges?
Well, great question. One of the first things, BRMs, uh, they have to be, they have to know their domain.
Sure.
So again, as an IT BRM, it's on me. I have the onus to make sure that I'm up to speed on new technologies, new things that are happening in the world. Right, right now, everyone's talking about AI. So
Right.
I am, joining a lot of AI classes and taking
Got it.
AI classes, using AI tools myself in my professional and personal life. And not only should a BRM be, in the know of everything in their industry, but professional skills too, right? Like negotiation skills, communication skills, the Project Management Institute, as well as the BRM Institute and other accredited training organizations. Seek out that training.
Right.
Sometimes it's free, sometimes there's a fee. That rhymed. That wasn't my intent.
Sure.
But make sure you take advantage of those courses and encourage your other BRMs to do that too. So
Right.
being a BRM isn't a stagnant role. It
Right.
is changing almost daily, right?
Right.
So you have to change with the times, you have to change with your organization, and you have to change in order to stay relevant as a BRM.
Well, you make a very important point, and I know you personally in the sense that you are a continuous learner. You are always looking out for learning and contributing and sharing. Is that specifically unique to Tina, or all BRMs are like that? An organization would love to have someone who's continuously learning, sharing, contributing to do that. I'm just trying to see, is that going to be a good trait that you would expect to be for a BRM from an organization standpoint? Or do you get such kind of BRMs, uh, you know, today like that? I'm just wondering.
I may be the nerd of the group. My team, there were two of us that I considered lifelong learners. Like we were always learning something. Like, when AI, when GPT came out, we started creating our own GPTs and talking and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, I would say a good trait as a BRM is to be a continuous learner, maybe not a lifelong learner, but a continuous learner.
Right.
At least twice a year, if not more often, take some sort of class,
Correct.
whether it's in your industry or it's how to better yourself as a professional. At least twice a year, I would encourage any BRM to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important to make them relevant and also look at the aspect to be much broader. Now, you've been part of community, you've been proponent of the BRM communities of interest. How much do you think your community of interest has helped you in your career? Because I'm trying to talk about with other BRMs who have never heard about the BRM Institute. We're trying to now revamp and revitalize the whole community of interest group. Because as a proponent of a strong single global BRM community, we want to do that. So, what has been your experience and what has been your take on communities of interest, and how does it help? How does it help someone progress in their career?
So I'm currently part of 3 or 4 communities of interest,
Right.
but only because let's take the technology community of interest. So that's obviously, I want to make sure I'm in that community interest. And we talk about technology challenges, how we can better communicate technology changes and technology risks to our
Right.
business partners. So
Right.
that makes sense for me. But I've also joined healthcare. I'm
Right.
also part of legal and government because I get different perspectives
Right.
from different BRMs, not only BRMs as people, but the different industries too. So each industry has unique challenges, but some of those challenges and the way the BRMs and their organizations solve those challenges can be applied in my profession or my domain as well in IT. So
That's a
that
great,
that's the most I'm getting out of in terms of benefit.
awesome. That is great because you have a lot more opportunities. So people who are listening to Tina's talk, there's a huge opportunity for you to join the community of interest on your specialization, either through the geography or the areas of interest. So please do watch out for the community of interest group. things. And if you're already a BRM Institute member, get your thing signed up with your profiling, and you will stand to gain a lot. The next question, I think, is for me a very important part. As the final question would be, okay, we have done a BRM. There's roles and responsibilities already set up. We are focusing on outcomes. How do you measure if the BRM is successful or effective in an organization? I mean, is there a part of objectivity that we need to do it? Because everybody wants to know, how are we going to be measured if you are thinking about being successful, because you're dependent on so many different moving parts to finally achieve that outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are several ways. So I will tell you, before I knew BRM was a profession. And when I was standing up the BRM capability, it was a feels like method. Like, it feels like this business partner's relationship with IT is good because we've had some successful outcomes and they appear to be happy. And then this partner is, it's a little bit challenging because, maybe we don't have the finances to work on their thing right now. And so their trust in IT is a little bit lower. So now we have some great tools, not only with the Business Relationship Institute, but also with some accredited training organizations like yours and
Right.
others that provide tools. One good example is the Relationship Management Maturity Assessment.
Right.
And if those of you that have seen the triangle, the relationship maturity model, it goes from, order taker, there's 5 levels all the way up to strategic partner. So
Right.
there's an assessment you can do with your business leaders. And on the other side, you can also do an IT capability assessment,
Right.
or um, enabling capability assessment with, finance and HR.
Right.
But you can measure by asking different questions and
Right.
surveying your business leaders. How is IT doing? How is HR doing? And the first time you do it, that sets your baseline.
Right.
So maybe your baseline is that 3rd level, which is a service provider.
Right.
So you're providing just the baseline level of services. Everything is just running like an oiled machine. And then 6 months later or a year later, when you assess that again, maybe you've moved up to a trusted partner, or maybe you've moved down. And if
Right.
you've moved down, what has happened and how can we get that changed? So part of fixing broken relationships is with a relationship improvement plan.
Sure.
So what happened? How can we fix it? And on either side, business leaders and IT, finance, HR, legal, what do we agree that we need to change to move it back up? There's another tool called the RSOAP, or the Relationship Strategy on a Page,
Age.
where I like to start this with new partnerships. So we set the stage as, what do we want our relationship to look like? And not just the relationship with me as a BRM, but the relationship between their organization and the enabling organization, in my case, IT. And you figure out, here are some initiatives that we want to do to make sure, we improve the relationship. And we look at that every 6 months or every year to see, are we on track? Are we off track? What kind of tweaks do we need to make? So those are just 2 very powerful tools to use to assess how the relationship is moving.
Awesome. I think that's been a great conversation to do that. So, final thought around BRMs. Are they here to stay? Is it a
Yes.
great, exciting part of being a BRM? Or and what would be one piece of advice you would tell for either aspiring BRM or the BRMs who are already doing well? What is your piece of advice, or trends? If you look at it, with AI coming in, and this is again
Yeah.
going back to the part with AI coming in, is BRM still relevant? Is relationship still matters? Or we're kind of looking at a chatbot or deep fakes could be even more misleading. We don't know who we are dealing with. Is it the Tina that I'm talking to as a legitimate person, or someone else that I'm kind of dealing with? So, what is the kind of the future, and how do you see the BRM in the future?
Yeah, BRMs are here to stay, and BRMs, it doesn't have to be a BRM by title. You
Right.
can be a business analyst, you can be an IT director, you can be an HR manager. And as long as you use the concepts of relationship management, which are basically, nurture relationships. And the more you nurture relationships and those relationships stay positive, or at least you're working towards making them positive, you're going to have better business outcomes. You're going to have better growth. You're going to have better opportunities. Your customers are going to be more happy. Now, it sounds simple, but it's really not. That could take a few years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But for someone that wants to be a BRM or a new BRM, find yourself a mentor. There are a lot of people that have this role. I want to say, aren't there like 30,000 BRMs in the global community now? Like
Right.
there's 30,000 people that would love to talk with you about their job and help you figure out, even do you want to be a BRM? That was
Yeah.
hard to say. You want to be a BRM,
Right.
and what does that look like for you? So talk to people, find a mentor, would be some of my advice.
Awesome. It's been a real pleasure, Tina, for sharing about the part of the BRM value proposition. I know a lot of things. You are very passionate BRM, and people would have really see that as you speak and as you resonate with some of those community of interest and contribution. It's been a great pleasure listening to you, and I'm sure that it would inspire more BRMs to make an impact because we are going to look at value and impact overall. And it's been a great journey so far. And thank you so much for sharing. And we'll look forward to seeing you again in the near future with some podcasts and webinars going forward.
Yes, thank you, Suresh.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching. That was episode number 30 with Tina, and I'm your host, Suresh GP. So keep watching this BRM Brownback. This is going to be available on Google Podcast, Apple, and everywhere. So do not miss any of the episodes. And if you have any questions, please do post on, and I will see you in our next episode of BRM Brownback. Until then, stay well and keep watching and listening, and ensure that as BRMs, we do things magical. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you all again in our next episode of BRM Brownback. Thank you very much.